Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel attempts to create a wild bubble top on a 62 Thunderbird.
This bubble top is kind of the holy grail of fabrication. It's pretty mysterious. It's definitely delicate. I mean, these cars have a history of being like top-notch attention getters.
But Ian's eccentric client isn't going to make it easy.
The crazy thing about working with Victor is he's always pushing me.
Then I walk up and I said, Ian, crank it up. Let's take it to the limit.
Yes, Captain. Taking it to the limit, as requested.
And with the pressure on,
The whole thing's collapsing.
Ian pays a visit to legendary car customizer Jean Winfield.
Every day is a school day. Even Albert Einstein, he said that you learn every day, and the day you stop learning, you start to die.
And later, as Ian continues the build, the project expands in all directions.
This is a perfect example of how I work. A venture into the unknown. I got a couple ideas, a couple of hints. It's time to make it happen. Victor started off as his client. I would do random modifications on his cars, and he's become my biggest patron. The dude, I don't know how many cars I've built for him, but if you look at the examples of where this man goes, his cars are top-notch.
Ian, throughout our relationship, has been able to achieve anything I ever wanted to do. The guy's got an imagination that I've never met anybody that has like his way of thinking. Everything we do is art. These are not cars, these are works of art, they're sculptures.
Victor's cars are full custom stuff, really artsy, and he trusts me to just go off with my own designs, and if they work, he follows through with it. Otherwise, we just collaborate on a lot of stuff. Victor and I are up at this car show up north, and this dude's got the king bubble top of all bubble tops. Apparently, it's the biggest one in the world. This car is out of control. Victor says he wants one, and I gotta pull it off.
So I said, you know what? Let's go home and start.
Victor is nonstop about wanting this bubble top. He's chewing my ear off about it. And I'm thinking the quickest way to get there is to use one of our old projects. We got this old T-Bird, never got finished. I think it'll be a perfect candidate. This T-Bird project, in my idea, was like a speedboat with wheels. It was this crazy motorized transformer-type Thunderbird. And Victor just wasn't happy with it. He wanted to take it further, and it just stalled out.
The reason why I picked the Thunderbird, looking at the car, I knew I wanted to do something crazy with it.
The cool factor about this car is it's radically customized. The whole rear has been cut off and remade. It's got a wild lift-up cockpit. The hood is reversed. It's on air suspension. To take this car further is really like out of control. I consider it done. Victor just wants more. Our work is evolving. We've finished a lot of cars, and then he has me cut them apart again. The first task in this whole bubble top adventure is figuring out how to heat up the plastic. The first task in this whole bubble top adventure is figuring out how to heat up the plastic. The only hints I have at this are some pretty obscure writings about how Ed Roth did it. Some folks say a pizza oven. Other people have talked about like electric heating elements. The real challenge here is figuring out how to heat up a huge amount of square feet of plastic at an even rate. I got a couple ideas using some sheet metal, some plywood, and angle iron with a masonry board as insulation. I need to build an oven big enough to heat this thing. So what I ordered was 2 different thicknesses of plywood. The heavier stuff will be the form for the Lexan when we inflate it. The thinner stuff is for the walls. And the masonry board is insulation, and the galvanized steel is just something hopefully to reflect the heat and protect all of it. The loose factor about this oven is there's no way to test it except to do it. So I'm gonna build it, fire it up, see what happens. We're gonna build a frame to hold these masonry sheets. and then cut the plywood and sheet metal to match. The cool factor of this whole bubble top thing is, like, I've seen this since I was like 8, 10 years old. You know, these cartoons of cars with crazy plastic roofs. How the heck do they do that? I've always wanted to find out. Every project I do, I'm really just trying to push my skills. This plastic experiment is really next level. I've never tried anything like it, and it's a huge challenge. That's all the sheet metal panels. Next is the dusty part. I don't know how dirty this is gonna get, but let's see. After about 12 or 15 sheets, we should have a nice mess going. There's a lot of options on how to go about creating this thing. I really could just farm it out to a plastics company and be done with it, but that's not how I work. I want to figure this thing out and make it my own. Get my playpen, spend some time. See, so by putting the screw through this way, it grabs the plywood, sandwiches the whole thing together. All I have to do is put in 5 million screws. I mean, the real cool factor about the bubble tops is that it was completely custom. It wasn't seen on anything else. It was handmade for each particular vehicle. Well, now that these little sandwich panels are made, they need to be retained in the angle iron structure. So I think I'm just gonna put 3 uprights on each side. That way it'll all kind of flex, but it definitely won't fall apart. Next step is to take the rest of the angle iron and create a perimeter frame that'll be for the lid. The lid's gonna be a few different sandwiched pieces. It all kind of has to fit together, so I'm just gonna finish up the heavy welding here and bring it to the location. The rest is all screws and wood. We're out at Victor's place. We got the big oven here. I'm gonna try to make like a teardrop shape. I've read about different plastics and each one has its own characteristics. I've settled on this acrylic sheet plexiglass. It's 3/8 inch thick and it's a 5 foot by 8 foot sheet. The plastic needs something to hold it in shape while it's heating up. This whole idea with the backboard and the retaining ring is really just to keep a solid base. So the edges remain perfectly flat and the interior part of it will heat up and expand. My idea with this base plate is that we could blow 4 or 5 different roofs and they would all be successful. They'd be interchangeable and Victor could just pick the one he liked. I'm creating a balloon with wood and plastic components. I'm trying to make it airtight. The silicone is going to help seal it. Silicone looks like it's sealed. All the air fittings are in place. Got everything screwed together. Big challenge trying to figure out how to heat this thing up. I'm just hitting walls with it. I'm talking with Victor about it.
And he said, well, we need some igniters or elements. I said, I got some perfect elements. Let me just finish cooking my steaks.
I guess his family barbecues a lot. You know, they have big family events, go on vacation. They do a lot of motorhome camping. And they got these 2 huge commercial barbecue grills, and he thinks that it's gonna make it happen. Victor and I share a lot of the same characteristics. I think this barbecue thing might just be too much. He's convinced it's gonna work. All I have to do is prove it. Each grill has 2 propane tanks, so we'll have 4 5-gallon propane tanks, which should be plenty of capacity. As long as these guys get that volume of air warmed up, it should work. All you can do is try. We're either gonna have the right amount of heat or not enough. We'll see. I built this whole oven without the lid on. So we're here, we're doing this, and it occurs to me that with the lid on, you can't see anything inside the box. That's a problem. I used to work in a foundry, and they had this huge kiln, and it had this perfect porthole that you could look into it. So I'm just gonna cut a hole in the box and make the same little door that I saw on this kiln. Got a couple portholes cut in the thing, got a couple barbecue grills. We're just going for it. It makes some heat. Let's put the lid on. In keeping with the low-tech approach, I've got some plumbing pipe, simple gauge, and some air fittings. The idea is to just create a controlled air source to inflate this thing. Target temperature for this is 375 degrees to get the plastic that hot. I had the idea that this laser thermometer would be a perfect way to check out the temperature, and yeah, the readings are consistent, it's heating up, and it seems like it's gonna happen. Pretty weird. This huge sheet of plastic, as it heats up, is starting to deform. It's getting like all wobbly looking, and just putting a little bit of air pressure in it.
Ian just strategically putting the air in and heating it up, and I walk up out of coming from a project that I was on, and I said, Ian, crank it up, let's take it to the limit.
Yes, Captain, taking it to the limit, as requested. That didn't work. Shut her down. I turned my head for a second, and it was like, what was that?
Within 2 minutes, the thing started tweaking and blowing, and I could see the look on Ian's face like, what the hell did you make me do now?
Shut everything off, it's gonna melt the plastic real bad. A quick turn around, peeking in the hole, I can't even see what's going on. I'm seeing sheet metal. I don't know what's going on because the whole thing appears to have collapsed. The whole thing's collapsing. I don't know what to do. I stuck my arm back in the oven to hold the thing up and kind of get a look, and it's just destroyed. We gotta lift the lid up and see what went wrong. It looks like the metal and everything tore right out of the roof of the box. It tore off the lid.
So we actually damaged and warped the first mold. I said, just crank the pressure on, and that was the wrong thing to do, but hey, it's a good story.
This thing was twice as big before this broke. So what happened was he lost air pressure and it shrunk. What a bummer. To most people, this thing looks like an utter failure. I'm gonna work through it. This directly relates to my process because I don't know what I'm working with. Most of the time, I don't know where I'm going. So this is where it failed. It ripped off of the backer board. You can see it's all jacked up on one side. But what this does is it proves that the theory works. This whole process is pretty mysterious. The only guy I can think of to talk to about it is Jean Winfield. Jean Winfield is one of the old school custom car guys. He's been doing this since the 50s. He's been there, he's seen it all. And if I need some advice, he's the go-to guy.
Well, I was glad to see Ian come up here today and ask me some questions about blowing a bubble. I've done it, of course, over and over for the years and years that I've been building cars. I do metal shaping seminars all over the world, actually. I want to teach people and keep this thing going. Every day is a school day. Even Albert Einstein, he said that you learn every day, and the day you stop learning, you start to die.
When I saw your oven, that's what I dug about it, because it's like, wait a second,
so
I could do this.
That's right.
And literally, you just have a pipe with holes drilled in it, and you light it on fire. You light the gas.
Well, we made that when I was doing Blade Runner. I built 25 cars for the movie Blade Runner. And they had windshields, but they weren't really complex shapes, they just had a little curve to them and stuff like that. So we built plugs and draped them over there, and it worked really
And that
slick.
was all just acrylic, regular plexiglass?
Yeah. Then when I did Back to the Future 2, I did the Ferrari, what we call the Ferrari. We had to buy special, it was gray, smoke gray, but we had to buy 5 foot wide material.
Just seeing Gene's shop and all of his projects, it really gets me charged up. I mean, I want to build some cool stuff, and just seeing people who really push your brain to the next level, this is a great experience. That's Really, the whole inspiration for my project was seeing you and your team pull this off down at Rich's shop.
Yeah. I built the Pacifica originally for Ford Motor Company, 1962 and 3, and it went in the Ford custom car caravan all over the U.S. So then I wanted the engine under glass, so I built a mold, and I changed the mold 2 or 3 times until I had it just right, and then it worked out pretty good.
One tip that Jean gave me, which I have seen, is keep the temperature even, you know? Be really careful about how this thing heats up, because if you get a hot spot, it's gonna deform. So I guess it's keep the air pressure low, keep the temperature up,
Yep.
and just
put
be cool with it,
put your
right?
manila folder in there so it doesn't hit directly on the hot plexi. I use a manila folder and I cut it into kind of a diamond or star shape and staple it down so when the air hits it, it distributes the air evenly in all directions.
Everything I've done was really by the seat of my pants. But after talking with Jean, he gave me a few tips, and he's been successful time and again, so this makes me think I can get this. When I saw you with the bubble top, it's like, I've been thinking about this since I was 15 years old. And it's like, that's how you do it. Right, it's like, this is like, you know, no vacuum machine, no nothing.
Right. I think that Ian's a real good craftsman. He's up and coming, and he's going to do a fabulous job. And I think he's going to go back and rework that bubble and redo it again, and it'll come out fine for that T-Bird. Shouldn't be a problem.
After talking to Jean for a while and really just coming to understand his process of doing things, it really parallels mine. It's like a real do-it-yourself attitude. So seeing what he's pulled off, I think I could do this. The whole wooden structure is upsized. It's thicker than it was. The idea is it won't distort. I strengthened everything. I used this heavier angle iron, put a complete perimeter frame around. I threw cross members to hold the center down. The fender washers around the perimeter, they're gonna hold the wood in place. The steel is gonna hold the whole thing together. It's like a big, heavy unit. Just gotta keep this plastic under control. It's heavier than it's ever been. We got wheels on the gantry, so we can just lift the lid into place, no struggling, no error. I set up areas to put a little temperature gauge. I put an air pressure gauge on the inlet, just to try to keep the air a little stiller. I don't know if it'll have any effect, but I just put a couple masonry boards to close up the air gap on the front and on 2 sides of it. I put some marks inside the box to help out. I didn't know how big the thing was. I was looking at a screw on the wall and just trying to gauge how far down it was. As I understand, the whole deal is even temperature and inflating it so the thing doesn't tear. You want it to be consistent all the way across the surface. The ovens are pretty much where they were, but we never had them even. They were just kind of laid in there, so I put them equal distance from the walls. Propane tanks are full. All the burners I took and made sure that they're all working properly. Game plan from the start for me is to slowly heat it. Preheat it to about 200 degrees, and in 10-minute increments, raise the temperature. Get it up to 300 over the course of a half an hour, and let it soak. This whole thing is an experiment, so obviously we want to get this thing completed, but it's really a learning experience, and we're going to keep going. Victor's a funny guy about the way he builds stuff. He'll paint a car 5 times until he's satisfied. Unbeknownst to me, the car is painted. This T-Bird is really like an evolving piece for him, and he's finished it to a certain degree. I think he's just trying to get the final exterior look. I think if I just put a bubble top on it, this sucker's finished. From the start, Victor wanted to see what's going on inside. I'm crawling around the ground, peeking in. I got my little system, so he brings out his great-grandfather's family heirloom mirror.
We couldn't really see. We were looking underneath, and it's pretty warm. I said, let's get some mirror. You want to use this? This is passed down for 10 generations. That's how committed I am to the cause. I might lose my heritage, but we got a bitchin' bubble top.
He found a way to squirm a mirror in there somewhere so he could check out what's going on.
I put it underneath, and actually we were able to see the bubble being blown. Don't tell my wife I used it, but, you know, in fact, Thanks for reminding me, I'm gonna go put it back inside and wrap it back up.
I think it brought a bit of good luck. My plan is working. The slow heat, the low pressure, it's not over 3 PSI at any point. It's very low air pressure. And the thing is taking a great shape. It's the best one yet. There's none of that weird deformity like we had on the first try. Thing looks freaking smooth, man. It's nice. Lifting the lid up, this is a home run. It looks like magic. It's better than I hoped. Look at the radius on the front of this, man. It stood up really good. My whole life has led up to this, my entire career. Look at the freaking front, dude. It's like, bing. We set it on the car, and the contour, front to back, it's a part of the car already. I think that's the top. I think that's the right bubble for this car. That's perfect. It's perfect. This thing's on the car for 15 minutes. Everybody's praising it, you know, wow, yeah, that was a great experience. Victor wants to go bigger. He wants something better than this.
When I seen it come out, I said we achieved our goal. And if we were normal people, we would say, all right, let's get the hell out of here. We're done, but we're not.
Technically, bigger means more heat, more air pressure, a little more time in the oven. And we've already proven that that amounts to disaster. But Victor wants more. We were really successful with this last dome we inflated. The proportions are dead on. Talking with Victor, he wants to max it out. That's how he rolls. We're gonna just push it hotter than ever and more pressure than ever. We're gonna get the biggest shape we can out of the box that we have. I'm following the same procedure as the other times. This time, though, I'm gonna let it cook a lot longer. The way this one's coming together, this one seems to be coming out the smoothest of all of them. I just don't want to get it too close to the flame because that's certain death. It's still pretty nerve-wracking. There's uncharted territory. How hot can you go? How much pressure can you put in? We'll see how hot it gets. This bubble is enormous. It's getting so close to the barbecue grills. My plan is to turn off the heat and then hit the air. That way there's no flame. It's just hot air. Houston, we have a problem. All right, let's try to cool it. I think we could save it, but it's definitely giving out. See the edge is all warped out? Yeah, we got trouble. Fudge. I didn't realize how much force such a low pressure of air could exert. It's really crazy how steel and wood are deforming under the air pressure. I don't know how this is gonna work out. It's on the flange, which is kind of a bummer, so the flange will have a little warp in it. Similar to the first failure, just not as drastic. Well, we just gotta cool it off, so I'm gonna raise the lid and let some air circulate. I'm just holding it at 3 PSI. Raising up the chain hoist, and the thing looks sweet. It's enormous. Better than I hoped. I think it's over 2 feet tall. That's real good. It's quite a dome we've got there. You can see here, there's a little wackiness, but all in all, I think it's usable. It's pretty substantial. 22 inches. The other one was just under 16, so that's a pretty significant increase. So we're putting this thing on the car, but it's big. I mean, stand back and look at the thing. It's for a different car. It's too tall for this one.
When I seen it come out, and I went back to like we could do anything, and we're gonna try to stretch it even further.
this whole mission of heating and inflating the plastic, that was like a fraction of where we're going with this. We got the bubble top, now we're gonna build a car that's suitable for it. Victor's pushing, he's pushing it. He wants more. We're sitting there checking the car out, thinking about ideas, and he comes up with this spinning bubble top.
I said, okay, Ian, this one's gonna spin, go up and down and spin.
Yeah. Victor's talking about all these ridiculous concepts. He came to the right guy. This is what I do. I'm totally on board. Victor just wanted me to get this concept as quickly and as inexpensively as possible. Just prove that it works so we can go forward. Since there's no bubble top rotating supply hardware surplus store that I can think of, my friend Bill, he's got a pile of old junk. I think I can make something happen. I'm looking for any kind of steel tube that will telescope. It just needs to work like a power antenna almost, or even any kind of antenna where they telescope and get progressively taller. The whole idea is you have multiple sleeves and it should be incredibly strong. So my thought was there would be like a sprocket with some kind of a motor over here with a chain drive maybe, and it spins the whole deal. Just in the way I'm picturing this mechanism working, I think it'll need like 3 or 4 concentric tubes. I'm thinking just to save space and be ridiculously strong. It has to be super heavy duty. I don't know how much weight's gonna be on here, but the leverage on the pivot pin is gonna be incredible. If I made this into a U shape, like a saddle, and I could put a pivot through here, so it would be sitting like that, and then it would tilt up and down and swivel around. It'd be kind of like a mechanical bull almost. We could buy anything, hydraulics, motors, whatever. I just gotta see if this thing has the capacity to perform. To get this whole deal to spin, I'm thinking some kind of a chain drive would be good, because it really gives you the opportunity to move the motor further away from the whole pivot assembly. This is what I'm using. Bottom line is, this is such a crazy concept. I just gotta throw it together, low budget, quick and dirty, and prove that it works. When I'm just setting it up here in the car, I realize that the car's in the way. I gotta cut out a huge chunk of the automobile to make this design work. Victor was so proud of this paint job with the gold leaf, you know, it was a really hot looking car. So I sent him a piece of it. You know, it's just, that was his favorite paint job, so I wanted him to keep a piece of it. My original concept was to have this lift like on a hydraulic ram or something, but there's just no room. You can see how much room you have now, but when you drop the car, the cool factor is this car's on airbags. It's a huge amount of weight that's just dropping on the floor. I think I'm gonna use that to my advantage. The only way I think I can make this move is by actually using the differential as a pusher. As the car drops, the differential lifts this mechanism up. Like a landing gear kind of thing. As the car settles, the thing automatically opens. I cut out the body, and then I have to fit this outer bearing sleeve. It's working out good because it will weld right to the cross member that I put in for the airbags years ago. Everything seems like it's coming together. It's pretty simple. I just keep sliding these tubes in, raising and lowering the suspension, and trimming them to fit. This saddle isn't really working on its own. It's designed to work with the leverage of the big dome attached to it. So I'm putting this rod on to simulate the leverage that's gonna be there in the end. Prepare to lift. So what's happening is you can see that this is rising out of the back of the car. And then it hits the pivot. I said, and then it hits the pivot. No, I think it's just jammed. right? That's pretty cool. And then it comes down. The whole deal with this is just greasing up everything. It's rusty, dirty metal. As soon as I sanded it a bit, put grease on it, it smoothed right out. Oh, look, it's way smoother. I'm stoked. This thing is working better. Every time I raise it, it smooths out a little more. To the layman, this could seem pretty sketchy, but I call it a success. I had this in my brain and it's actually functioning. That's cool. The up and down motion is working perfect, but we're not out of the woods yet. I really want this thing to rotate. I'm gonna do whatever it takes. The next step is making a support ring to hold the acrylic dome. It's really a no-brainer. It's just some 1x3 heavy wall rectangle tube. The whole plan with the shape of this ring is to use the wooden backboard from the original oven. That way I'm sure that the contour matches this plastic bubble. The hardest part about this is going to be this really tight radius at the front. I think what I'm going to do is put the tube on the roller and create a gradual arc like it is through here. The thing with the bender is it makes perfect circles. This is kind of an ellipse, sort of like a spiral. So I'm gonna have to take that circular shape and tweak it. It's got a couple different radiuses in it. I'm gonna have to put the saw to use. I'm gonna have to just slice every inch or so and kind of fold in a tight radius for these corners. So the whole deal here is you can see how it was, but by slicing it, see, it makes a tighter radius. And the whole idea is to just keep trimming it to fit. I'm gonna TIG weld all of this because it's gonna be a lot less finish work. It doesn't have a big built-up bead like the MIG welder, so it takes a little longer, but the finish time will be reduced because you'll see there's gonna be a ton of welds on this. See where it's at. It's darn close. I just got to put a piece in. What I'm going to do is sleeve these tubes inside so that it's a very strong join at the front where they come together. And then back here, I'm going to put some kind of a huge support plate that'll match onto that saddle there. Once I put the plastic on here, I'll just go through with a series of holes and put some kind of a rubber grommet. That way the metal is never touching the plastic. It's just suspended in like a rubber bushing. I knew I was gonna hit a wall somewhere in this project. The thing with the motor gear drive, I knew was gonna be a hassle. Yeah, so this motor needs a lot of room. I knew that this motor was gonna be a pretty big setup in the car, so I just cut out a bunch of sheet metal and then I just went in for the simple lift mechanism. This thing is working, you know, it leaves room for development, of course, but hey, look, it's happening, right? It's a little loose, but it's working. The ring that I've created to attach to this monstrosity is a 1x2 inch steel rectangular ring. Met them up in the center with about an 8-inch piece. And then here on the back, I threw it on the car and I mated it up to that big heavy saddle piece. This is the part with the pivot. And then I threw some supports along the side of that, and then a couple outriggers so that it's got a little more grab on the tube. The thing weighs about 60 pounds, and it's roughly 5 foot wide by 8 foot tall, and I'm hooking it up to an Angry motor. Victor and I have done enough projects to know that his cars are gonna get cut up. It's just what happens. I'm just gonna chop a hole in the doors, modify that, set the ring down. You know, it makes it part of the car instead of just stacked on top of it. This whole thing is in its conceptual stage. These bubbles are so delicate, I don't want to ruin one of the keepers. I brought the damaged one to try out. That way, if it fails, no loss. So it's still not perfect, but it's working. As long as it lifts this plastic and spins it, I think we're going to Victor's. On to the finish. Literally, this car lifts up, and spins around. It's awesome. You've never seen that before. Probably for a reason. Oh, it spun itself off of that block. It's kind of half carnival ride, half Thunderbird. I got it working. It's still kind of loose, but it definitely demonstrates Victor's concept perfectly. So it totally works. I'm gonna take it down to Victor and see what he thinks. Okay, I got this car back to Victor's. We'll see what he thinks about it. There's a couple small issues, but all in all, I think we're gonna work through it. It's really tough to say how Victor's gonna respond to this. I know he likes to far out stuff, but I also know he likes to see things delivered properly. I pull in with the trailer and I see Victor. He's not really jumping for joy, let's say that. The car shows up, it's half disassembled, there's a bunch of foam stuck to it.
When I first saw the car, I seen it was in the rough state. I want a system that will open up and rotate and be safe and secure. So that's what we talked about, and that's what I'm hoping to see today.
It's all there, it's proven to work, so that's kind of where we're at. I just need you to make a decision on whether you'd like it to spin or not.
How fast is it going up and how fast is it rotating?
It rotates too fast.
Like how fast is too fast?
Like it wanted to kill somebody. So let me show you the rotation. I'll ask you to stand back when I turn it on.
He put it on and it was rotating like very fast. He almost took off my head a couple times.
But just seeing this wild concept got his brain going in a whole new direction. Accomplishing this bubble top, I think I might have like blew a fuse or something in Victor's psyche because now he's really going off the deep end. He's talking about some wild concepts, and we're only at the beginning of this next stage.
On the next episode of Full Custom Garage, the bubble top goes out of this world as Ian and Victor take it to the next level.
I want it to be like a spaceship. It's already been built 2 times, what's one more time?
Some people would think of this abstract idea as like, what? And I'm like, yes, charge onward, we'll figure it out. I spent a couple seconds inside that dome and it's hot. So we're having vents in the front that'll vent the cabin and then vents in the back that'll exhaust it. My whole task here is creative metalwork and mad scientist inspiration. He's got pro body guy on the job, he's got a pro interior dude. I meet the guy and it turns out he's deaf. And Victor's like moving around, flailing his hands, this and that.
You know what? I move my hands and I'm a hand talker, if you could see, and we could communicate perfectly.
He's talking about making it look like this is like the main power source for the entire car. It's crystal-powered spaceship.
I'm a subtle guy, if you could tell by my car.
We're on the final run of the whole game right here. And Victor comes up with another idea.
But now I said, Ian, we need a new element.
He wants to take it one step further, so we're gonna try something unique once more with the roof. I don't know exactly how we're gonna get there, but this car is gonna be amazing.